Yo, what's up guys, it's Talon, and today we're going to be going over patch 6.2c, specifically just the balance changes. We don't really care about anything, just the balance changes. So going right into it, Nasus, first ability is going to do 4 more damage to champions, minions, monsters, anything. I already thought Nasus was insanely strong. I think TP is super good on him because any hard matchup you have, you can use TP to basically crash a wave. You don't care how much damage you take. Recall, TP right back. Really helps you with weak matchups or hard matchups. So I think Nasus is broken, honestly. I don't know why he got buffed. I guess he just has low win rate, which makes sense. Senna then, I think Senna's a very bad champion, so it makes sense that she's getting buffed. Her base attack damage going to 54 from 52. Base health increased by 30. And then her stacks now give 1.25 AD per stack instead of 1. I don't think this change makes her that much stronger. I think basically Senna is a pretty good laner. She obviously scales well, but the problem is if you're playing support, you don't get that much gold, and she just doesn't do very much to actually be a support. Like, she just doesn't have any supportive elements to her. A lot of enchanters, whatnot, scale a lot better with a lot less gold. You know, they don't need as much gold to really be that useful. And obviously in ADC, she just doesn't get stacks very quickly, because if you last hit, you don't get as many stacks. So she's just not a strong champion overall. However, obviously this buff helps, you know, any buff helps, but yeah, basically still not going to be that strong of a champion overall. All right, then we have a Jayce buff, which makes me very happy. If you guys don't know, Jayce is my most played champion ever. Love this champion. So he's getting base AD going up by 4. His Shock Blast, which is his ranged first ability, is getting 5% increased damage through his third ability, his ranged third ability. Basically, you use your first ability through your third ability to increase the damage, so that's getting increased. Damage to jungle monsters also getting increased by 30% from that. Damage to jungle monsters with his melee first ability, which is the jump, going up by 30% as well. And then his second ability in melee form is getting more damage, going up by 20 per level. So overall, this actually makes Jayce significantly better. So Jayce's main problem right now, he's just not as strong in Baron lane because he doesn't have the best matchups in Baron lane. He's pretty easy to counter. Mid lane, you generally want a lot of these AP champions that scale better right now. And jungle, he just didn't clear fast enough. So now he's going to clear much faster in jungle, so he's going to be a lot better. Jungle, top lane, obviously, and mid lane, he's still going to have a lot more damage now with these buffs. So overall, I do think Jayce is going to go from a pretty weak champion to relatively strong. Definitely is a pretty big buff overall. And if you're a Jayce player like myself, you're probably very happy with it. Okay, then we have Vi. So her third ability now will take less time to charge another stack. Especially in early levels. So at level 1, it's 3 less, and then it goes down 2 less, then goes down 1 less, and then stays the same at max level. So this is going to make it a lot easier just to have an additional third ability auto attack in like a fight, for example. So that can be very useful, especially early game. So I think it's kind of biggest buff for her early game. And then her ultimate cooldown is going down by 10 seconds at level 1, 5 seconds level 2, and then 0 seconds. So again, kind of an early game buff in general for Vi, making her have just lower cooldowns. She's already an incredibly strong champion, so I have no idea why she's getting buffed, but she is. So Vi is going to be a top tier jungler on the patch, no doubt. Super strong champion, definitely if you're looking for an easy champion that's just good into most of the meta. You're going to want to pick up Vi. Okay, then we have Kha'Zix. So Kha'Zix is getting 4 more base AD, a lower cooldown on his Q, and more base damage on his Q. Overall, I would say this is a decent, you know, it's going to help with his clear a bit. Just having overall more damage. And an assassin obviously is always going to benefit a bunch from damage. So I already thought Kha'Zix, he was fine enough. I mean, he's not super strong, not super weak. It's still really like you want to pick this champion in the games where it's good, and you don't want to just lock in Kha'Zix blind every game. If the enemy have a bunch of squishy champions, or often even if you have champions, you know, that the enemy are going to want to group into, or don't want to group into, like an Orianna of Misfortune, he kind of works well with these types of things because he wants to isolate them, they want them grouped, so then either way the enemy are kind of in a bad spot. But yeah, going to be definitely a pretty strong champion overall this patch. I do think Kha'Zix will be pretty decent as an assassin. Then we have Kalista. Her AD is going up 0.5 per level, and then her Rend is getting more damage, basically more AD scaling, and a little less, or a little more base damage rather. I think Kalista sucks. I think she'll still suck. She's a decent laner who just does nothing later on in the game. Having more damage is nice. I don't think this is going to make her anywhere near strong, but obviously does help a bit. Then we have base stats for Jinx going up by 0.5 AD per level, and her attack speed per level going up by 0.5%. This is actually pretty interesting. I would say that Jinx should be a pretty strong champion on the patch overall. I mean, I already thought she was decent. If you have Amelia or Lulu, she's pretty broken. If you have like anything else, she is relatively strong. She struggles a bit more with champions who want to engage and be really aggressive early. She's not like necessarily that type of champ, but I do think definitely she should be one of the better hyper carries on the patch after this change. Speaking of hyper carries, we have another hyper carry. Miley's favorite hyper carry, I hate this champion so much, is Twitch. His AD per level is going up by 1. Then his third ability, mana cost, is getting lower, and the bonus damage per stack is going up by 12% bonus AD, so basically better AD scaling. So it's going to, you know, encourage you to build AD on him. And then the cooldown of his ultimate, God, I hate his ultimate, is going down by 10 seconds at level 1, and then 5 seconds at level 2, staying the same when you have the max, and then the bonus damage is going up at each level as well. So honestly, like again, Twitch, I think just a couple different hyper carries that were weaker in the meta becoming a bit stronger. I feel like we'll have to see how these numbers specifically play out to see what it really feels like. But yeah, overall, I mean, I think Twitch, again, if you have a Lulu or Emilio or Yumi in the case of Twitch, and this champion can feel pretty broken, I still think it sucks overall. But after this nerf or after this buff, it'll be more like a middle of the pack hyper carry. Then we have Ambessa getting nerfed. Thank you for that. I hate this champion. I hate a lot of champions, if you can't tell. So her base damage is going down by 4. Her Dawn Shrouds, her Drake Hound Step, I can't read apparently. Her passive base damage is going from being 14 to 49 to 5 to 40. And then Cunning Sweep, which is the first ability, is getting a cooldown or a higher cooldown, 2 seconds at level 1 and just 2 seconds higher every level onwards. All of these nerfs, they're actually quite a decent amount. I mean, base AD plus, you know, more damage and cooldown, like all of this is definitely nice. Probably makes her not quite the most broken champion in the game anymore, but definitely going to still be a top tier jungler and a really strong Baron laner just because she still has a bunch of damage. Her mobility is insane, and she's definitely still going to be extremely strong. Then we have Kayle, and surprisingly, Kayle is getting a nerf. I really don't think this champion is anything special, but I think people really just don't know how to play into Kayle. He became a lot more popular with the Bloodthirster changes and with the buffs to all that. He's just been building crit a lot. So his base AD is going down by 2, his attack damage per level is going down by 0.5, and then Starfire Spellblade, which is his third ability, the passive bonus damage it's still going to be 15% AP scaling, but now it's going to be 5% AD instead of 10% bonus AD. So basically nerfing AD Kayle, because again, that is kind of what's been taking over overall when it comes to Kayle. I still think the champion is fine. I mean, it does the same thing. TP again helps him because if you're in a bad lane, you can TP back, not lose as much. But yeah, people are really bad at playing against Kayle, so he always has a high win rate. So if you want to, you know, stomp low elo, you play Kayle. Pretty much that simple. Then Corki, who is completely broken, so it makes sense that he's getting nerfed as well. I need to pull up Corki in my game because I don't know these champion abilities. So whenever it says the champion abilities, I always get confused. So his passive here, the basic attack and Spellblade dealing 20% bonus true damage is now going down to 16% true damage. So pretty significant because the true damage is kind of what was really broken on him. True damage in general obviously usually feels pretty broken. And then his first ability is getting 10% less AD. So I think this does make him probably no longer the best ADC in the game. I would say that might at this point be Sivir or Xayah. But he's still really, really strong. Should still be a top tier champion, just not quite the very top because of these nerfs. Then we have gameplay changes. So for items, we're increasing Hullbreaker stats, optimizing its application scenarios, making its passive effect easier to trigger. Also increased the mana stacking efficiency of tier item line for a few items and adjusted the stats of Sunfire Aegis, and last but not least, Bloodthirster had too much value, so we're reducing the lifeline effect and adjusting its price. So Hullbreaker, 5 more AD, and then the movement speed passive, set sail passive. I actually don't know what this is. I'm going to go look it up in game right now. I got too lazy to end up editing this out, so I'm going to keep it in. But the set sail, yeah, it literally just gives you movement speed, so you just get more movement speed. I didn't realize it was just that simple. And then the every 5th attack dealing bonus damage is now every 4th attack. So overall, it's actually a pretty big buff for Hullbreaker. I would say really good on split pushers already. Like, I liked it on Fiora. I think Fiora, Jax. And then anytime you fall behind on any other melee champ, like a Bruiser. So if you fall behind on Renekton, you just lock in, you know, you buy Hullbreaker. You just start sidelining a bunch and just getting value from there. So it's going to be even better for that. I think overall it's quite a good item right now on split pushers, but obviously you mostly build it on split pushers and you mostly build it in games where you want to side lane all the time. Then Tear of the Goddess. So the mana charge now triggers up to 3 times every 12 seconds, is now every 10 seconds, so you can trigger it a bit more frequently. Mana immune, then maximum mana increase when mana spent is now 18 instead of 15, and it triggers up to 3 times again to 10 seconds. Archangels 15 to 18, same thing. And then Winter's Approach, which is the tank one, also getting the 12 seconds to 8, or the 12 seconds to 10 seconds. So basically you could just charge, you know, or stack the mana immune items faster, or the mana items. I always hated these mana items because for me, solo queue is a pretty fast-paced game. You don't really want to be playing stuff that can only scale. So I've always thought we don't really want to be locking in a lot of mana immune or building a lot of mana immune on most champions except like Ezreal and a few others. I don't think this changes much of that. I still think it's going to be very, very similar. I don't recommend these items as a whole, but obviously they're a bit stronger for the champions that do utilize them well, like Ezreal, for example. Then Sunfire's Aegis is getting less damage, or less health rather, but it's now going to give armor, and it looks like the build path is going to change a bit as well. So it's Balmy Cinder, Ruby Crystal, Cloth Armor now instead of Kindle Gem. Little different, not too different, but overall, I guess it makes it better into AD, a bit worse as just an item if the enemy have a lot of AP. Bloodthirster then, the price is going up by 100, and then the Lifeline now gives 10 armor and 10 magic resist. I don't think this makes the item that much worse. Like, I mean, it obviously makes it worse, but I think it's still a very, very similarly strong item. Should still be the first item for most ADCs, but might feel a little bit less OP in some cases because obviously you're going to be able to melt through people a bit better with it. So that's the patch as a whole. Honestly, I do think it's a pretty good patch. I think they nerfed and buffed the champions they should. The items that got changed mostly make sense. A few maybe weird changes as always, but overall, you know, again, like the Vi buff, I don't understand Vi buff, but or the Kayle nerf, yeah, overall though, pretty good. I would rate it like a B+, you know, I think it's solid. And let me know your guys' thoughts on the patch, and I'll see you in the next video.